It's wild how one night can flip the mood for an entire month, because what just happened didn't just hurt the standings, it hit something deeper about what this team believes it is. There was a late scare that had the whole faithful holding their breath. There was a number from the Shanahan era that suddenly sounded louder than the final score. There was an impossible moment that somehow turned into a gut punch. And there was one blunt line from Kyle Shanahan that might end up shaping the way this playoff run is remembered. If you ride with the faithful, tap like, make sure you're subscribed, and jump in the comments right now, because I genuinely want to know where you're at after this. Are you watching that game and feeling anger, or are you feeling hunger? Because that wasn't just a loss. That was one of those games where you're sitting there afterward and you catch yourself saying out loud, wait, did that really happen? In the biggest game of the year, the 49ers may have played their worst offensive game. The box score looks like it belongs to somebody else. 173 total yards, 9 first downs. That's not a we'll tidy it up next week kind of night. That's the kind of night that forces a hard look in the mirror, especially when what was on the table was the NFC West crown, the #1 seed, and home field advantage. And for Niners fans, the strangest part is watching the identity get squeezed like that. Christian McCaffrey, our engine, our cheat code, finishes with 23 rushing yards and 34 receiving yards on 6 catches. No touchdowns. Seriously, in a game that big, and he doesn't find the end zone once. That's not me pointing fingers at one player. It's about how Seattle made every yard feel like it cost something. Brock Purdy goes 19 of 27, but only 127 yards, with an interception, no passing touchdown. It's the first time all season he didn't account for at least one touchdown, and his passer rating drops to 64.9, one of his lowest of the year. The whole thing felt tight, uncomfortable, like you're waiting for the spark and the rhythm to show up, and it just never does. And as ugly as that was, it almost ended a whole lot worse. The moment that made everyone freeze didn't happen early, when you can talk yourself into, we've got time. It happened late, when the game was basically slipping away. The 49ers are down 13-3 with 2:20 left. Realistically, that's a long shot. But with the division and the top seed still technically out there, Purdy goes back out anyway, trying to find some kind of late magic. Then it hits you all at once. On that final drive, Purdy cuts the thumb on his throwing hand because his hand strikes a defender's helmet on a throw. Blood. That quick flash of panic where your brain goes to the worst place immediately. And a few plays later, 4th and 6 after an incompletion intended for George Kittle, Purdy gets hit and goes down. The replay shows Seahawks linebacker Derek Hall coming from behind, right as the ball is leaving. Purdy gets sandwiched, stays down for a beat, then gets up, slowly, and then you see him heading toward the medical tent. After the game, Kyle Shanahan said Purdy was okay and could have gone back in, with the injury described as a stinger. That's the exhale, that's the relief. But it's also a warning, because the scare didn't come out of nowhere. It came from an offense that spent the whole night living on the edge. Tight windows, inconsistent protection, and no steady rhythm to lean on once things got messy. And while everybody's going to focus on that last sequence, and they should, there's another part of this that won't go away. The fourth quarter problem keeps creeping back into the conversation. Since 2017, the 49ers under Shanahan have basically never flipped games when they enter the fourth quarter down by 7 or more. There's one playoff exception in that entire span, and they still haven't won a game since the start of that 2017 season, when trailing by 10 plus in the fourth quarter. That isn't bad luck. That's a trend that sits quietly in the background until a huge moment forces you to stare straight at it. So here's the brutal question. Is this just one ugly night? Or is this a pattern that has to be broken immediately if this team is going to survive a road playoff run? And that's why the next part feels so uncomfortable, because the game didn't really start falling apart in the fourth quarter. It started earlier, quietly, like the kind of slow drift you don't notice until you look up and realize you're out of runway. The warning signs were there before kickoff. No Trent Williams, which changes everything for protection and the run game. No Ricky Pearsall, one of the few vertical threats left to stretch the field. Purdy walked into that game knowing the margin was thin, and it showed almost immediately. Protection was inconsistent. Separation was tough to find. The offense looked like it was working for oxygen, snap after snap. Seattle's defense stayed disciplined and physical, and it felt like they were daring the 49ers to live in tiny spaces all night. The Niners couldn't sustain drives. They couldn't find chunk plays. They couldn't build the rhythm they'd leaned on in recent weeks. Purdy battled, extended plays, took hits, kept fighting, and you could see how expensive it got late when he briefly exits with that shoulder stinger and the blood on his throwing hand. He's expected to be available, but that moment was a loud reminder. The margin is razor thin right now. And then you get to the turning points. In a low-scoring game, you don't get many. So when you do get one, it has to count. In the third quarter, down 10-3, the 49ers get a golden opening. Seahawks quarterback Sam Darnold mishandles a handoff and puts the ball on the turf deep in Seattle territory. The defense is right there. Yetur Gross-Matos has a chance to fall on it, flip the field, maybe hand the offense a short drive that changes the entire vibe, and the ball slips through. Seattle keeps it. That's one of those plays you remember for weeks because it isn't flashy. It's just gone. Then later, near the goal line in the fourth, when the 49ers finally start driving with some life, you get another gut punch. McCaffrey drops a pass that turns into an interception instead of points. Again, it's not about blaming one guy. It's about opportunity. When your offense is struggling to create chances, a swing like that hits twice as hard. No single play decided the game, but they stacked. And when you stack missed chances in a game this tight, the final score starts to feel inevitable. Defensively, it's almost cruel, because holding Seattle to 13 points is usually a winning formula. The defense competed, they got stops, and they even caught breaks. Seattle leaving points on the field, Mike McDonald going for it on fourth down early, and Jason Myers missing 2 field goals. Honestly, it's kind of amazing Seattle only scored 13 considering how they were able to move the ball at times, especially on the ground. But the defense also showed wear and tear, missed tackles piled up, and the inability to get off the field at a couple key moments extended drives and bled the clock. There was one play that felt like it took the air out of everything, and if you're a 49ers fan, yeah, it probably brought back memories you didn't ask for. 3rd and 17 in the third quarter, a 3rd and long. The situation where you're thinking, all right, they'll run something safe, try to grab 5 yards, punt it, and we'll get the ball back. That's what it looked like. That's what it should have been. Instead, Seattle runs a simple pitch, and Kenneth Walker III slices right through a defense that, for one snap, looked porous. First down, back-breaking. Seattle goes down and kicks a field goal on that drive, making it 13-3, which ends up being the final. And to make it sting even more, that 3rd and 17 conversion comes right after the missed fumble recovery chance. It's like the game opens 2 doors for the 49ers, 2 chances to swing momentum, and both of them slam shut. John Lynch's reaction was caught on camera after that 3rd and 17, and if you saw it, you know what it was. Not surprise, recognition, that look that says, I've seen this movie, and honestly, that's what it felt like for a lot of the faithful. Big moment, 3rd and long, one breakdown that sticks to your ribs. So when people say, the defense did enough, they're not wrong. The defense kept it close, but the offense never found answers. Without Williams and Pearsall, the margin for error disappears. Outside of one late drive that still ended in an interception, the 49ers couldn't sustain anything. That's how you lose 13-3 even when the other team leaves points out there. Which brings us to the quote that might matter more than any stat from the night. Shanahan didn't duck it afterward. He didn't dress it up. Asked about going on the road in the playoffs, he basically said, it is what it is. Now we've got to do it the hard way. We'll embrace the hell out of doing it the hard way. It wasn't dramatic. It was blunt. It sounded like acceptance and a challenge, because the reality did change fast. Instead of a bye and a controlled path through January, the 49ers are now staring at a road-heavy playoff run with almost no margin for error. That's what the hard way means. Travel, hostile environments, fewer second chances. For a team already dealing with injuries and late-season instability, it means leaning into resilience instead of advantage. And the loss to Seattle basically handed you the blueprint of what can't happen again. Offensively, slow starts, no rhythm, no explosive plays, and too many empty drives. Defensively, you can't keep bleeding time on extended drives, and you can't let a 3rd and long turn into a backbreaker. In the postseason, Every mistake is louder. Every missed opportunity feels heavier. Every slow start becomes dangerous. The mindset isn't new to this group. The 49ers have won meaningful games on the road. They've played through compressed schedules. They've dealt with chaos. But playoff football doesn't care what you did last month. It cares who you are when the lights hit you and the air gets thin. And that's why this ending matters. Not because it closes the season, because it opens the real one. What we're left with is a team that got hit in a spot it hates being tested. Late game margin, execution under pressure, and the little plays that decide everything. A night where the offense flatlined at the worst time. A defense that fought but wore down. A quarterback scare that reminded everybody how fragile this can get. A 3rd and long that felt like a nightmare replay. And a head coach who looked at the road ahead and basically said, "Fine, we'll take the hard way." So here we are. No cushion, no comfort, no excuses. Just a playoff run where every snap weighs a little more than the last. Be honest. Do you think this team grows in chaos? Or do you think the bill for these mistakes finally came due? Drop your take in the comments, hit like if you're rocking with the red and gold, and subscribe because January is here, and this story is not done.